Hey, welcome into another episode of Halos in the Infield with your host here, Todd Fox, along with the other host,
Fernando.
Fernando, the Lone Star Halo, coming all the way at you from New Jersey. He's on the road.
The
And we
Garden
have
State.
yes, we have a special guest from the LA Times. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Sarah Valenzuela. I started working as the Angels beat writer there back in June of last year. It's
Nice.
been
All
a
right.
year long so far.
Yeah, so she's got some games under her belt. She knows what's up. So we're gonna pick her brain and also want you the fans to get to know her and as well as what she does behind the scenes and in the LA Times for the reporting of your Angels. So before we get to that real quick, Fernando, you want to let them know about the page and all that, all the good stuff?
Oh, oh yeah, all the fun stuff. 5-star review, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, and follow Sarah as well. I'm sure she'll give her handle in just a minute. But let's go ahead and dive a little bit into what led you to this path of getting with the Angels. Actually, for starters, what's your relationship with some of the other beat writers? Do beat writers get along, or is it kind of like hey, we'll get along, but I'm still going to get the scoop first?
Um, well, I, I'm truthfully still learning more of the dynamic. Um, I do think everyone's different. For me, I like to think I get along with everyone and I try to be friendly with everyone. We all have different jobs and we all kind of have our own things that we're working on. So I don't view it so much as like I need to get a scoop over you. There are some elements of that where it's like, okay, if I have like my own information and something that I would like to share myself, I'll keep it to myself until like my story comes out as just a way of, well, people can come to me and come to my stuff for that kind of stuff. But I don't think it's anything like we're like, oh, kind
Yeah.
of thing. I don't know. I feel like the beat dynamic varies from team to team. I don't know, I think the beat writers at the Angels, I think we all get along pretty well. I'm still getting to know the rest of the guys, Fletch and Rhett and Sam. They've all known each other a bit longer than I've known them, but we all get along pretty well.
That's good to know because I would imagine, the pressure to be, Angels beat writers not as much as the Dodgers one would be. It's that one seems to be more of like a dog eat dog type thing. I've heard some stories there, so I'm glad you get along with the Angels beat writers.
Yeah, everyone's different. Some clubhouses are a bit more crowded than others, and
Mm.
it's hard to find your own unique story to tell that's not just what everyone else is writing. But I feel like we all kind of figure it out on our own.
Okay.
Well,
And
I guess it's a bit of an advantage that you came from, another big market in New York, which I mean, New York is just a giant media market in general, but the sports dynamic over there is pretty crazy. I would imagine that's a little more dog eat dog. Now, I see here that you were on the sport deck for the New York Daily News for 3 years,
Yeah.
and that you helped cover the Mets and the Yankees. How was that?
It was honestly, so I was a backup writer. Sorry, I was the backup person covering Mets and Yankees. So primarily for no, all for home games. Whenever the main beat writers just needed like a day or two here and there.
Okay.
I just feel like doing that transitioning into now being a main beat person, uh, they were so different. I felt like there was a little less pressure on me as like a backup person, just because like the main beat sometimes would be like, yeah, maybe look out for this and kind of keep me in the loop of like what was the last storyline that they had. So it was a little bit of switching. It wasn't any kind of like hard pressure. Um, but now it's like, okay, yes, you you are in charge of this whole beat. Um, I have a tremendous amount of support from like my mentors and Mike DiGiovanna and Bill Shaken and Dylan Hernandez
they've
and
been
Jack
around for a
Wells.
while. Yeah,
Yeah, and Jorge Castillo and Helene Elliott and all these people, all these other people at the LA Times who've covered the Angels for years, been around the team for years. So I tremendous amount of support, which I'm very grateful for. But yeah, having the primary responsibility for covering one beat for myself comes with a little bit more pressure than I had working back in New York. That said, I do appreciate the smaller clubhouse dynamic of the Angels clubhouse. Just back in New York, the clubhouses, in terms of the amount of media covering the team, it was a bit more. But with the Angels, it's, there's four main people, myself, and then the other three. There's usually an AP person who floats in. And then there's the Japanese writers who cover Shohei Ohtani. So I feel like
You probably get more of them at sometimes than the regular beat writers, right?
sometimes it really depends, but since their priority is Ohtani, they're kind of a little bit of everywhere, and we're not always populated in the same, like we're not all always in the clubhouse.
Got you. I had a question because like I listen sometimes to the fan in New York, iHeartRadio, shout out right there, like Boomer. But I bring that up because like over there, like they seem to talk Mets and Yankees all year round, and like the Giants and Jets are kind of secondary. So I can imagine the kind of pressure, or at least like the need to report on stories, because I don't know if you've noticed, but like the Angels aren't like the number one team in this market, in SoCal. So I mean, like the I guess what I'm trying to say is like Angels fans, they love their team and everything, but they're not priority number one. Like you would get more like Lakers, and the fact that you're able to be the head beat writer and get the majority of the stories. You're not having to rub elbows with as many people in New York. I mean, that had to be like something refreshing for you, right? Coming over here to the West Coast.
It definitely helped with my learning experience. It's given me room to become this beat writer, to become a beat writer in my own right, without sort of being crowded in the whole space. So it's definitely given me the room to grow on my time.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So have you been to both Citi Field and Yankee Stadium? I would imagine.
Yeah.
Okay. Which one do you prefer? Because I've never been to either one. I drive past both every single month. Which do you prefer?
Citi Field. But let me preface and say Citi Field because it was made for the fan in mind, and like you can see the different amenities in both places. So I feel like you go to Yankee Stadium because you're going to watch a baseball game, and there are some classic elements to their stadium. But Citi Field has a lot more going on outside of the field that, at least from a fan perspective, it's more to do there. So
We heard Yankee Stadium
Okay.
is more corporate. It's more like catering to the higher ups, or at least the more expensive fans down low. It's not the old Bronx.
it's definitely different, but Citi Field's transition from Shea Stadium into Citi Field, they had two completely different kind of atmospheres. Whereas like the old Yankee Stadium versus the new Yankee Stadium, they have similar feels to each other, but one is just more modern.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, I've never been to either one, but Yankee Stadium is really weird because, yeah, I mean, I guess the Bronx in general can be pretty weird. I mean, you're like a block or two away, and it doesn't feel like you're near this historic stadium.
Oh yeah.
Like I service some storage facilities literally just down the road. You make a right turn, you go past these buildings, a bunch of fast food places, and then all of a sudden you see the Hard Rock Cafe, and there's Yankee Stadium. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you hear Yankee Stadium and you think it's going to be something like Wrigley Field, where there's Wrigleyville and there's a nightlife, and hey, this is Wrigley Field. But it's not like that at all. You make a left turn, all of a sudden there's Yankee Stadium, then you cross over the bridge, and you're all of a sudden in a different borough.
Yeah.
So yeah, Yankee Stadium's wild that way, but I mean, it looks like an interesting ballpark to say the least. So, what was your perception on like seeing Angel Stadium? And I assume you've been at Dodger Stadium by now too. What was your perception of those, considering they're two of the older stadiums in baseball?
They were definitely different from Yankee Stadium and Citi Field. Sorry, my makeup is leaking into my eye.
No problem.
Yeah, they were definitely different. Dodger Stadium, I knew it was on the older side. But there were just some parts of it that I was just you walk around and you're like, oh, this is very unique. Like take the press box for example at Dodger Stadium. If you're on the third row of the press box, the ceiling is very close to your head.
Yeah.
And you like the overhang then shields a lot of like what you can see out. Like you can still see the field at like no problem, but you stand up and it seems like your field of vision is like cut in half.
Yep.
That's fair.
And then with Angel Stadium, it seems like it's lower in nature. Like you step from when you enter into the stadium and like you just walk into like the first set of stands, it seems wider but somehow like lower in like feel. I suppose it has a lot to do with the fact that there's so much open space behind it. And I'm prior to that, like every other base, like the two baseball stadiums back where I'm from, everything in the background is either like it's closed or they're buildings. So it somehow felt like it was just lower to the ground and so much more open of a field. So definitely different.
Plus at Angel Stadium, I mean, the press box is essentially an afterthought because it was an old suite that they gutted and turned into the press box. And what used to be the press box, they turned into like a what the Don Julio Club, is it, Todd?
Yeah, it's one of those clubs.
Yeah, one of the paid clubs for fans.
Is it weird having to watch a game at Angel Stadium from the first base side instead of right behind home plate, or not right behind home plate, but behind the home plate area?
Oh, no. So we are actually behind home plate. We're in I believe it was an old radio suite behind home plate.
Oh,
So who's on the first base side? I thought that was the press.
There's two sections.
Okay.
So there's one section behind it, but it's a very small space. So kind of if you don't fit in that space, the bulk of press goes to the one down the right
First base
line.
Okay.
I have to apologize. We were too excited to ask you about Angel stuff first, and your trip from the East Coast and everything. We didn't get into your bio, so yeah, tell us a little bit about how you became a baseball fan, obviously a writer, and where you came from, if you could, please. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, no worries at all. So I grew up in Queens, New York.
Okay.
Actually, the way I became a baseball fan through my family, naturally, I feel like all of us have we're introduced through our family. We all have those like through the generations ties to the game, that kind of nostalgia. I'm Filipino and Dominican. My mom's Filipino, my mom's Dominican.
Awesome.
Specifically, when my mom's side of the family moved to New York, they got there at the same time. No, not the same time, but like very close to when the Mets had just won their first World Series in '69. They got there in shortly after 1970. And everyone in New York is still talking about like the Mets, like they're a miracle, it's amazing. And they associated, like they came here and they're like, who are the Mets? And like, what is baseball? So they associated being American with watching baseball because that's what everyone was talking about at the time.
Yep.
So they they learned baseball and they had their own fan. Most of my family are Mets fans. There's another half of my family that are Yankee fans. It's a weird faction. But I grew up also loving baseball and going to baseball games, going to then Shea Stadium, going to the old Yankee Stadium. So that's how I got through there. being a baseball writer, it's so funny. I told the story to some of my new coworkers, and they kind of laugh because like it has nothing to do with baseball. Have you guys ever seen the show Everybody Loves Raymond?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
The main character, Ray Barone,
The
technically
beat
his
writer.
character is a beat
Yeah.
writer.
Don't tell me you followed Ray Ramones. You picked.
I did. There was one scene in particular that like follows me like to this day, where he's reading a newspaper, and his family's reading the newspaper. It's a column he had on the Mets, and at the very end, they're like something written by Ray Barone, and everyone starts clapping. And that one one scene stuck with me from like childhood up until like, yes, this is what I want to do for a living. I thought it was so cool.
It's
Um,
funny how that works, right? It's always just those weird little things that just stick with you. It's never anything practical. It's never anything like, oh, a beat writer came during career day. It's always, something weird like that. I get it.
You put your two favorite things together. Everybody loves Raymond and a beat writer, and boom, there you go. That's cool. That's cool.
so yeah, from there, I had different like twists and turns as I went to Syracuse University for my
Nice.
education and to get my journalism degree. Obviously, like at the time, I feel like everyone, when you're going through college, you're still trying to figure your life out, trying to figure out what's the best path that would lead you to success. And after college, you're still as confused, and it's hard to find like your first job. It's hard to do this, it's hard to do that. So my first job, like in the print writing industry, was actually not sports related at all. It was in hard news for this hyper local paper called the Bronx Times, and I was assigned to everything from politics to like really sad stories about people dying in fires and shootings. And after a while, it got so depressing. Like if I had to do another story about someone who died, it was so depressing. I would like come home and I'd cry at night. I'd be like, oh my God, why is everyone dead? What is happening?
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's why I don't watch the news.
It was so sad to cover. Like, how do you I had this one guy who like his son was a he just joined the army or the Marines, but also they were an immigrant family that just moved to the US from, I don't remember what country they were from. And there was a fire in their apartment, and the guy, he just happened to be home from like from training boot camp. He was just home for a little
On leave
bit.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm.
For like a week, and it was a surprise that he was there. Like he surprised his family. The
Yeah.
fire breaks out in his apartment, in the family's apartment. Everyone, like no one was home. Like he was the only one there. He's like saving, like physically like pulling people out of said like building that's on fire. Goes back in maybe like a third time because he heard someone said that whatever, their children were in a burning room. He goes back in a third time. He never comes back out.
Oh.
And then I have to talk to his dad. Like his dad was a single dad. I have to talk to his dad the next day. Like dude's like falling apart. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like I don't want to talk to you about, like, clearly this is a sensitive topic, but it was a lot.
It
Yeah,
sounds
it
like
seems like it.
It was a
Jeez.
lot. But after that, um, I ended up at the New York Daily News and working in sports. They were the ones who gave me my first opportunity to really show that this was the field that I wanted to be in, and really gave me that chance to, I always expressed, I want to work in baseball. I want to be a beat writer. This is what I want for like my life. And they helped put me on the path to actually doing that. So 3 years later, when the LA Times came calling, I was like, me.
Yeah, right.
Hey, you must have been shining if well, all those other beat writers over there in New York. So that's really commendable. I mean, and then two, being able to cover a team you grew up loving. That's pretty cool.
Yes, yes. It's been humbling, a
Mhm.
little bit overwhelming, but I feel like we're at the start of the beginning of a new chapter. So
That's awesome. Okay. Okay. So Did you collect baseball cards growing up?
It's funny. I did not start really like as a child, you know how you go to all the different fan events,
Hmm.
or like youth baseball events, and
Mhm.
you get like little goodie bags that usually come with like the little pack of Topps cards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you get like 5 or 6. It's almost like a
Yeah.
sample pack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always had those, but I never
Okay.
put into actually like collecting them
Mhm.
until it's funny, until I was getting ready to move out to California.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, I became super interested in collecting baseball cards. So now I have something like they're not even like in like an organized thing. Like I have one that's in like a thick binder of like just like really old cards. I haven't even gone through all of them. And then I have like one that's just in a bag, but like it's like this thick, like just pages and pages of cards. I have not gone through all of them, but like suddenly I was like, oh yeah, I kind of want some more baseball cards. So I just kept going to different garage sales.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've just like picked up so many now.
I did that with my studio. Fernando's seen it where like I bought a bunch of old like 96 or 86 baseball cards and they were still in their packages. I bought them in a box. And then I wallpapered the outside of the studio, just all baseball.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy. Being an adult with some money is a dangerous thing. Yeah.
I was like, I was just astounded. I was like, wow, these cards are like still in their original condition, and you're selling
No.
them to me for
for
like
dirt cheap.
$1 a page. No, not
Yeah.
even. I think I got like the binder I got for maybe $2. And then the giant bag I got for maybe $5. But I was looking through the car, like I'm pretty sure there's a Hank Aaron somewhere in there. There's a Willie
Mhm.
Mays in there.
Oh
There's
wow,
a
you're talking some
in
good
there.
Yeah,
retros.
some
Okay.
yeah, some
There's a
good
Now,
Nolan Ryan in there.
see, I'm wallpapering with some older cards that don't cost anything. You got some good stuff. All right. I
And
got you.
I'm just like, you basically gave these away to me.
Yeah. And you know there's gonna be a resurgent on cards too. They're gonna go back up in prices someday. So you're gonna
Yeah.
cash in.
All right, Mr. Beanie Baby.
I'm just saying, if we need it exclusive, I know how to get to her heart with those cards.
Yeah, we got Todd over here. Do you have the Beanie Babies with the tag still on too?
I may have some. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. The platypus. Actually, that one's worth some money. I hear. I was never a Beanie Baby collector, but yeah, I was hoping you had some like stories about like going down to the bodega and getting some overpriced baseball cards there.
Oh no.
Well, because everyone says that like I've never, for somebody who goes to New York every month, I've never gone into a bodega. There's just like a certain wall in my like a mental block. Like I don't know if I should go in there, but everyone says they're always expensive. Is that true?
I feel like it depends. I mean, the idea of the bodega was designed for like places that were considered like food deserts in like the grocery department.
Oh,
So
okay.
bodega has everything from like if you want your chopped cheese, if you want a bacon, egg, and cheese, if you want your coffee, if you want like just a juice or some water, some snacks, they have that. They have also like some small groceries. Some of them have like little like vegetables and stuff like that, very small like amounts of stuff. Some of them are like bigger, like in variety of what they carry. But I feel like it depends on both where you are and what you're looking for.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Like I like I told you off air, I literally go to like all of New York, from like Long Island all the way down to like Manhattan, the Bronx, Harlem. I'm throughout everywhere, so I see so many different kinds of bodegas. But anyway, let's get back on topic, so we're not wasting too much of your time. What's it mean to cover some of these Angels players? And actually, real quick before we get into that, being a woman in sports, obviously right now there's a current surge of women getting into sports and the world of sports, and Todd and I are big fans of that, and a lot of people in general are. What does it mean to be part of that movement for you?
Well, I don't really know. It's so much a movement, more so as everyone else catching up.
That's
Um,
fair. A step in the right direction for sure. A step that should have been taken, I guess, is a better way to word it.
for me, like it's a blessing, but when I look to some of like the women in baseball and the women in sports who are older than me, and they're part of the generation that helped break down the barrier to like opened like press boxes and clubhouses to women. I look to them as like these champions of just an entire industry of women who want to work in sports and women who are writers to just create the a level playing field. And for me, like I feel like I'm just in this nice area where I get to reap the benefits of that. I'm not going to say like it's perfect. I don't know what everyone's experience is now. Like all the other women who are like closer to me in age, who work in baseball or work in football, work in basketball, work in like clubhouses and locker rooms around the country. Um, but I feel like for my experience, I've had good experiences, and I'm blessed to have that. I'm blessed to be where I am, and I'm grateful for all the women who came before me and sort of made this possible for me and for women like me.
Yeah, it's a good thing now. I mean, it's whereas you might have had bias back then. Well, you did have bias, but now it's just like, hey, right person for the job. You know, there's really no, looking at a discriminatory way or a sexist way. Now it's just like, hey, if you could do the job, you're more than qualified. And that's how it should be. It's how it should have been.
Absolutely.
So we're definitely happy to have you on board, and I think he was kicking around before we got into that subject about how do you feel about this year's Angels team, and obviously talking to the guys entering spring training.
Well, this year's team definitely has shaped up to be an upgrade from last year's team, in my
Yes.
opinion.
Yes.
From
Just
a
be
depth
thankful you. Oh, sorry. Just be thankful you weren't here like 3-4 years ago.
like watching from afar, like everyone else look like on the outside looking in, it's kind of like an afterthought to think about like the Angels or like any other team that's not within the division or that's like typically competing against the teams that are in like your home market.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting now being on the inside, seeing it all happen. But yeah, no, from a depth standpoint, I think they've upgraded. Whether it's enough, I feel like that's the question that we're all waiting to find out.
Yeah, exactly. We're hoping that there's no injuries because that we usually get bit by the injury bug quite often. And then we're hoping these guys can bat their weight, which didn't happen last year, which was very frustrating. But we do have a dark cloud hanging over this franchise, and I think you know what that is. Me and Fernando have been talking about that. The Ohtani factor. I mean, I think all Angel fans would sleep better at night if we knew he was signed to an extension.
Yeah, on the question of all of baseball, literally from here to Japan, everyone wants to know. Honestly, I have no idea. It's more than just like, yes, we have heard these little bits of like more than elusive, his elusive style of speech that he typically does. He doesn't typically show too much emotion is what I mean to say.
Ever.
And we got like that a glimpse of like, oh, maybe is he unhappy? We're not sure, but like it was different like wording.
Mhm.
Back in the end of the 2021 season where he was like, oh yeah, I really want to win. And like my feelings of wanting to win are stronger. I believe that's what he said. My one of my mentors, Dylan Hernandez, he just posted his latest column on Ohtani. So I'm trying to remember what the exact quote was from 21. But yeah, so I feel like because of the way he speaks, and how much he does not really give away, it is so hard to know what's even like going on in his head, where he's at, what he wants to do. But I feel like no matter what his decision will be, and I said this on the podcast I was on the other night, like whatever his decision is going to be, like it's going to be shocking no matter what he does, whether he stays, whether he goes, no matter what happens, everyone's going to freak out.
Wow.
Let me ask you this, Sarah. Now, do you think that even Shohei knows what he's going to do right now at this moment? Do you think he's already mentally been like, you know what, I'm going to test free agency, or I'm willing to talk extension? Or do you think, like, from your perception and from his body language, that even he's, in a mental question mark state?
I honestly have no idea. I
Okay.
it's and I hate to keep saying I don't know because
No,
I
no, it's fine.
whenever I ask, whenever I'm interviewing other people and they say I don't know, I'm just like but like I don't know. Um that's why like anytime we get something from him, we're just like you watch it, you re-listen to it, you re-listen to the audio, you try to pick it apart, but he's got his own poker face in what he says that it's I have no idea. If he knows what he's doing and is just playing coy about it, then like he's doing a really good job at that. If he actually has no idea what he's doing and he's literally just acting as if he doesn't know because he really doesn't know, then like he's playing to his own advantage. So yeah, I have no idea. Like I can't even tell you what I think he's thinking.
Well, let me ask you this,
That's fair
because
enough.
when you were in New York, did you have a pretty good, idea of like how guys were they more open, like to your Aaron Judges of the world? Were they more open to talk? Easier to talk with, get a better read on?
Um,
In your opinion?
sort of. So, uh, there was more, I don't know if candor's the right word for it, but it was just there was a little bit more access to opportunities to talking to the players. Um,
Yeah, because
and
that's what I was going to get at was, having the New York media, obviously, there's a ton of them, but still they're accessible. Whereas these guys over here don't have to answer to too many beat writers, like you said, just like a handful compared to New York, but they're more tight lipped. Like even Mike Trout, like you're saying, you can't get a read on Otani. Mike Trout doesn't really lend his speaking chances to just anybody or even people in general. Like he's pretty quiet too. I mean, is that kind of a little weird compared to like the New York style of players you can talk to and their accessibility compared to the Angels, who have two really big superstars, but you're not that accessible to most of the players?
not really. I feel across the board, there are a lot of players who, I don't know if it's necessarily like media training or just like a maturity or patience with yourself.
Mhm.
With if you don't know the answer, if you're not comfortable with saying the answer, you say the truth without giving too much. It's not a lie. It's just you say what you feel comfortable saying.
Mm.
So it makes it sometimes it makes it kind of bland, but I feel like the not really saying too much style of like answering questions isn't unique to the Angels. It's kind of like a little bit, there's different players across the board, but like sometimes you'll get players who want to talk more. Sometimes you'll get players who just like same thing, a little bit more reserved. They don't want to say too much. But like the only difference I think between very specifically with like Shohei Otani and dealing with like the stars in New York or even anywhere else, it's just the accessibility. Otani we only speak to once, yeah, pretty much like only on after days that he pitches, and sometimes he will agree to like answer questions like on his way out, like he'll record his answers and like send them in. But yeah, it's just the accessibility that's a bit different.
Okay.
So, I have some friends in the organization who, and friends who have been in the clubhouse, and they've described to me, how Mike Sosha, Brad Osmus, and how Joe Madden's clubhouses were all run so differently. But what I don't know much about is what a Phil Nevin clubhouse looks like. What's the best way to describe, how Phil Nevin seems to run his ship from your perception?
I feel like they're all kind of in their own comfortable space. It's different. In the home clubhouse, I mean, everyone has like their own space, of course, in the clubhouse for spring training. It's kind of like just there's a lot of people. It's something like 88 guys in that clubhouse. It is overwhelming.
Yeah, it's a small
Um,
clubhouse too, right? It's not.
they've outfitted it to make it like workable, like it's not bad, like it doesn't feel that tight also, but
Okay.
it's still just a lot of people. A lot of
Yeah.
people in there. But yeah, I feel like everyone is very chill in
Okay.
that clubhouse. I don't know if that's a reflection of how Phil Nevin likes to run his clubhouse, or if that was just a reflection on all the guys in that clubhouse. But you know, everyone is very chill. Like you walk in, whoever happens to be there, like they're all kind of just quiet. They just kind of do their own little thing, and when you want to talk to someone, you kind of just walk up, ask if they're free and they have some time to chat, but they're all very chill.
That's good.
Okay. Fair enough. Now let me ask you this: Tempe Diablo Stadium, one of the worst spring training facilities, right?
That's what everyone keeps telling me. I haven't like I've been to exactly two places. I've been to the press room and the parking lot.
Okay, fair enough.
I guess I'll do a bit more walking around when the games start. And I haven't seen any of the other stadiums, but
Okay.
everyone keeps telling me it's a bit on the older side. I can kind of see that with
Yeah.
like how the press room looks, and like with kind of like the layout of everything. But at the same time, I don't have anything to go on.
Well, if you're when you're there on Sunday for media day, well, they're taking the photos, they're doing the what's that song and all that. If you get to see that process take place, I know they're currently building like a 3-story facility, right?
The like official thing that they told me was they're exploring options with the city of Tempe,
Okay.
or they're exploring options with what to do with the property space.
Okay, so already gonna try to get Tempe to pay for it. Okay. So where they do the media day filming is like right where they keep the field equipment. So it like reeks of gasoline, because it's literally right where the groundskeepers keep all their stuff. And they set up the green screen and everything right there. It's like the quirkiest thing ever. The road team has to walk across the field to get to their clubhouse. It's just Tempe Diablo Stadium is a weird place.
Oh, sorry. Oh, what? I just thought of something.
Mhm.
I believe it, like whenever it, and I don't know like whether this is across the board or anything, but I wherever like the facilities are, I think it's the city that like pays for like the construction of the stadium. So I think like whatever deal they already have, and like it's the city that pays for it. I don't know if that also applies to Tempe, but I know it applies in like San Bernardino. I remember when I was talking to the guys over there, they were saying like, no, it's like it has to like our facilities have to get upgraded with like the money that comes from the city itself. So
Okay, because I'm only asking because this was reported like pre-COVID. They said they were going to build like the 3-story facility. They said they were going to make Tempe Diablo Stadium so you could walk all the way around it, because most other spring training facilities, you can walk around 360 degrees, from the
okay.
outfield to, wherever you need to go. But Tempe Diablo, you can only really walk from foul pole to foul pole.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a big rumor that it was built on an Indian burial ground. So I don't
They
know.
said the same thing about Angel Stadium. Everything was built on an Indian burial ground, according to the internet.
I know. So with the season vastly approaching, you mentioned the depth. Um, I got to pick your brain on this one. We were impressed last year with the pitching. Can the pitching emulate that again? Because we feel if they get any kind of hitting, this team could be a playoff team. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it has the potential to be. They kept mainly all the same guys from the pitching staff, and like from the pitch coaching staff. Sorry.
Mhm.
I kept many of the same people. They added the guy from Driveline, Bill Hessel, who like has helped so many, or at least the Driveline program has helped many other pitchers, Shohei included.
Mhm.
Um, so in theory, sure. Sure. I'm a very like watch and observe kind of person, and we'll see how it all plays out. Yeah.
So I guess one of the last questions I have for you, do you have any fun or funny stories from your time covering the Angels, whether it was, your short time last year or, the early beginning this year? Anything quirky or anything that happened? Maybe one of the guys did something funny.
Actually, and I feel like I replay this moment in my head just because like it was such a stupid thing on my part. I feel like towards the end of last year, my questions just, some of them I was just like pulling them out of my head without like actually thinking of them all the way. So it was
Okay.
the day that Otani almost had his no-hitter. Before the game, I asked Phil Nevin, and I phrased the question wrong, and I'm gonna mess it up now again too, because I don't remember what question I even wanted to ask, but I went through this on the podcast yesterday and I whatever. What I wanted to ask him something along the lines of like, do you think Shohei Otani can be the next pitcher to have a perfect game? But what came out of my mouth was something like, how much time is it until Shohei throws a perfect game? Something that didn't make any sense, and like everyone started laughing at me for it, and I realized after it left my mouth that I was like, wow, what did you just say, Sarah? And Phil Nevin was just like so then when he like almost has his perfect game, I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do?
Yeah, the answer was that day, or
So everyone came back in we all went back into like the conference, the interview room after the game, and Phil Nevin walks in the room, he looks at me and I'm just like, I want to go back to being the fly on the wall.
yeah. Does Phil Nevin use the manager's press room next to the clubhouse, or does he use the upstairs one near the press box?
The one next to the clubhouse.
Okay, because apparently that one didn't used to exist. But before, Mike Socha used to have to go upstairs to what I call the silver media room, because I'm sure you've seen, right? It has silver wallpaper, right? And then the one downstairs has the red, if I remember correctly. I haven't been in either one in a while.
I've only seen the one on, so that floor that you're talking about, that's kind of where that's where our press boxes are.
Okay.
The ones that are behind home plate. And I've only seen that door open once.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. When I saw it open once, they were setting up to do either headshots or some kind of like graphic for like what pops up on the screens like during games.
Okay, that's what my buddy does.
Okay.
I have a friend who does that.
I have really two quick questions for you. First off, favorite Met of all time?
Oh, David Wright.
Oh, okay, Captain America.
Okay.
That's because in 2006 was the very first game that I remember wanting to go to. So like previously, like my like family would go to games to wherever. But 2006 was the first time that I asked to go to a game. And I believe that was either his rookie year or the year after his rookie year. I can't remember. I just remember it was very young in his career. And that was the player that like I fixated on. I was like, wow, this guy's really good.
Yeah, he was fun to watch.
So I followed his career to like the day that he retired. I was like, oh man,
2006 was his third year. That was his third year, 2006. But yeah, like you said, very early on.
That wasn't his first All-Star year, because that was the year he and Jose Reyes kind of just were like flashy everywhere.
That was his first All-Star year. Yes.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. So
I mean, you were right in both capacities. So.
So yeah, sucks that like his career ended the way it did, like with so many injuries.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him get back up there one more time and like play a meaningful season, like play a season of baseball like under his terms, instead of like, okay, we're activating you for one game. So that you can retire.
What a special moment that was, like watching that. I mean, that's from, an outsider, right? I mean, I'm not a Mets fan, but I mean, who didn't like David Wright? He played the game the right way, always seemed to give it his all. He was just fun to watch, especially that World Series year.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, my last question for you, it's also Met related. With Terry Collins, he used to manage here back in the day before Sosha, but he had the Mets super close. He just ran into a tough Royals team. What were your thoughts on that team? Did you think they had it? They were going to beat the Royals at the time, or do you think that was a strong enough team? Because to me, I thought a few years earlier they had a better squad, but he got the most out of that squad. The 2015 team was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah,
He
plus the
did,
starting pitching rotation was crazy.
Yeah.
yeah, I did get the most out of them, but honestly, coming in, like I viewed the Mets as the underdog in that series.
Mhm.
Because I figure like the Royals were already like coming in hot from their 2014. So 2015, the Royals seemed like they were coming for blood.
Yeah, they
So
wanted revenge because I felt they should have beat the Giants had it not been for Bumgardner. I mean, they were right there. And
what was it in 2014? The Giants radio stations banned the playing of Royals by Lord.
yeah, so petty.
Yeah, right.
So I viewed the Mets as the underdog that year. So if they were gonna pull it off, it was gonna be another like, wow, miracle Mets, it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I bet you all of New York was hyped up for that because it seems from an outsider, whenever the Yankees go to the World Series, it's more expected. I think when the Mets go, it's more of a party. You know what I mean? Because they're just excited to be there in the postseason.
It's funny for just like the dynamic for like New York sports. There's the one team that's been there for a really long time and has solidified like so many championships, and then there's the team in the same sport that hasn't had that same kind of legacy. Anytime you go to like a championship parade for any of these, so take the Giants for example. Last time they won in 2012,
14.
2012.
It was 10, 12, 14.
No, she's talking about the New York Giants football.
Sorry, New York Giants, not the San Francisco.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about football. Sorry. um, I think it was 12 or 11. I can't remember. Whatever. When they went to they won the Super Bowl. Had the championship, the ticker tape parade, fans lining the street. Yeah, everyone excited. Then you have like the faction of fans that have like holding up Jets jerseys, going, "Little brother."
yeah, yeah.
I feel like it's that same kind of dynamic for like a lot of New York. Like, so it's always seems like the Yankees and then the Mets, but different dynamic now just because of like where the Mets are, especially with like their payroll and their new ownership. So, but it's
That's kind of weird.
definitely different for sure. In terms of like the championship expectations through the years.
Yeah, because I mean, again, from an outsider, I mean, the Mets look like a team that's been around as long as the Yankees, but they really haven't. But their fans and their fan base is really strong, and they're just to me like the Jets. If the Jets were to win a Super Bowl, I mean, New York would shut down. So and I'm pretty sure if the Mets were to do it again too, same thing.
Yeah.
It's so weird how they play in New Jersey, but New York is where they had the parade. And in all fairness, there's not very many places in New Jersey near the stadium they could have it. I mean, Secaucus could not handle a championship parade.
Just imagine all the broken ankles from all the potholes that people would be stepping in. So that's the only problem.
Yeah. Secaucus. I used to stay in Secaucus before. Now I stay in Somerset. So, all right, Sarah. Where can our listeners and viewers find your work? Where can they see your work, and anything else you'd like to plug?
Yeah, you guys can follow along with whatever I post on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Sarah_Isabel VEE. Sarah is spelled SARAH. Isabel is ISABEL. And all my work can be found at latimes.com.
All right. I mean, that's
Anything else?
Not unless you guys have some more questions. I don't really have too many places.
Oh wait, how's your Spanish? How's you pretty fluent?
I was just talking about this with a player. I was just talking about this with Gio Urshela early today.
Okay.
The first thing he asked me was like, "So you speak Spanish, right?" And I had to explain, yes, I speak Spanish, but my mom is Filipino, my dad is Dominican. I very much have three languages swirling around in my head.
Oh
So
no.
sometimes I get very confused, like when anyone is talking to me in like either language. So, and I like back home, if like I have family that talk to me in Tagalog, which is the dialect that my family speaks in the Philippines, and then I have like my sister who will speak to me in Spanish. I will answer everyone in English.
That's fair. You guys can sort it out yourselves.
But so I've tried to make more of a point of like not to use English as like a crutch whenever I'm
Okay.
talking to the players, and I make more of a point to like speak Spanish. When I'm asking, like if I need to like interview players, I need to write out all of my questions like in advance just to make sure that I have it and I don't get confused and start just like I words escape me very easily. So I just make sure like I have all of my questions written out so I know exactly what I want to say. And if I get lost with like what I want to say, I already have it prepared.
That's fair. Yeah. Spanish is my first language, but for me, I have this like mental block of, well, I'm going to mess up. So we have a bunch of like Spanish speaking, like for instance, Edgar Cuero. He was supposed to come on during the off season, but I'm too worried about interviewing him in Spanish. Not because I don't know Spanish, but because I'm like, I'm going to mess up. I'm going to mess up.
all the time for me, and I feel like it's I mean, it's weird. Like when you're in New York, it's a lot of like a lot of Spanglish. So like you're
Yeah.
mixing English and Spanish like anyway. But like at the same, like anytime I need to speak it, I'm just like, unless it's with like friends or family, I am so self-conscious about how I'm actually speaking. Am I speaking it well? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Did I completely say something that makes no sense and I thought it made sense in my head?
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
100%.
I'm sure most of the players are kind of used to that though, right? I mean, the more Americanized Spanish, because that's how it tends to go.
But that's pretty good. I mean, I'm not smart enough to talk two languages. Sometimes I struggle with one. Fernando knows. So I
Can
commend you on
confirm.
that. Yeah, see, there you go.
Can confirm.
Honestly, there are times where I'm trying to do interviews and I'll forget all like this is why I need to write out all of my questions, because there was one in particular that like I forgot all concept of language. I forgot Spanish, I forgot English. I didn't know my name anymore.
Oh wow.
And like after that, like just traumatized. So I'm like, after that, I'm like, nope, every single question is getting written out because we are not getting stuck in that ever again.
See, that's probably what happened with Phil Nevin. You know, like you were ready to ask that question, we didn't have it written down, and then the about the Otani.
He's
Honestly though, like there's sometimes like after games, I'm like, okay, let me make sure I actually have the question I want to ask in mind so that I don't start babbling off nonsense.
Yeah, I mean that could happen. I've done some pretty run-on questions myself. Don't worry about it. But hey, we appreciate your time though. We
absolutely.
really appreciate that, and we look forward to maybe talking to you during the season. Hopefully on some good news and and some win streaks, and also you know we're at the stadium, you know, quite often, so maybe we can run by and say hi.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
We appreciate your time again. And Fernando, any last words?
No, thank you to Sarah for your time. We really appreciate you being flexible with everything and making the time. And for everyone, thanks for listening.
There you go. See you guys on the flip side.